Good afternoon, and welcome to the New Hanover County Bounce Back website. My name is Clifford Barnette. I'm a pastor of the Water Temple AME Zion Church, and I'm also a member of the Wilmington City Council. I'm glad that you're here to share with us today. We're going to talk about the community resilience model, and I will be sharing today 3 skills that we'll learn from the resiliency community model, as well as we'll also talk about an activity called Help Now Skills. Now, the community resilience model was written by Ellen Miller Karras, and she defines resilience like this. Resilience is an individual's and community's ability to identify and use individual and collective strengths in living fully in the present moment, and to thrive while managing the activities of daily living. The goals or the vision of the community resilience model is to create resiliency, informed and informal and informed trauma individuals and communities. I'll do that again. To create resiliency, informed and trauma-informed individuals and communities. The mission is to commit to bring wellness skills based on cutting-edge neuroscience to our world community, one person at a time. So as we talk about resilience, I want to introduce what we call the resilient zone. It's the OK zone. It's your state of well-being. It's a state of well-being in your mind, body, and spirit. When you're in the resilience zone, you're able to handle the stresses of life. And so as I talk to parents today, especially with those of us who are going through this pandemic, with those of us who have children at home, with those of us who have adult children, we want to talk about how to handle the stresses of life. And we do that by being comfortable in your what we call our resilient zone, or we call it our OK zone. It's a state of well-being. Now, in your resilient zone, what we're learning is that through your resilient zone, you're able to handle the stresses of life, the things that are killing you. We're able to share with you today 3 concepts from the community resilience training. We'll share 3 skills. We'll share a bonus thing called the Help Now Skills. And I'd like to start off with letting you know that I am a parent. I'm a parent of 3. This is a picture of my 3 children. And I want to start off by sharing with you that the one in the middle, Walter, back in 2003, November 29th, he had an 8th birthday. We were celebrating his birthday, and I went to speak at an engagement. Coming back from his birthday celebration, he had a balloon. The lady that invited me to the event gave his brother and sister some gifts as well. Well, Walter got upset. He was mad. He was furious, man, because they got gifts. And I guess the thing that triggered him, the thing that caused Walter to go out of his comfort zone, was he lost his birthday balloon. So we were sitting in the car, and he was just fuming and fussing and fuming and fussing. And this was well before I understood how to be a crim model and a crim trainer. And so Walter was just screaming and fussing, and I kept saying, calm down, calm down. It didn't work. I kept asking him to calm down. It wouldn't work. And so finally, I just said, that's enough. And I started to turn around, and my wife said, no, don't do it. I said, why? She said, because there are cameras. Have you ever lost it? Have you ever been out of your resilient zone? So what we're learning is that in your resilient zone, you're able to be okay. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down, sometimes I'm right in the middle. But what we want to teach today as we learn about this resilient zone is we want to learn that it's okay to be okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be high sometimes. But what we want to teach today is how to stay within that resilient zone and not get bumped out of it. When you get bumped out of it, we call it, sometimes you can get stuck out of your resilient zone. And if you get stuck out of your resilient zone, you'll find yourself in stressful situations. Like, for example, what's going on now with you as a parent, having the children at home, having to work from home, or maybe even losing your job. Those are some stressful events that can cause a person to bump out of their resilient zone, to bump out of their okay. It can cause a person to want to act crazy in a Walmart line, even though they've got cameras on you. Okay? And so as we talk about stressful events are the reminder of stressful events may in turn bump you out of your resilient zone, your comfort area. Now, when they bump you out of your resilient zone, we call that a trigger. Things that can snap, things that can happen. For example, for Walter, it was losing his birthday balloon. That could be a trigger. It could be things that you think about. And so the key is that when you're bumped out of your resilient zone, what CRM teaches us is how to balance back, how to get back into that resilient zone. And so when a person is bounced or triggered out of their resilient zone, we call they're stuck in the high zone. And if you're stuck in the high zone, here's some of the things that your children, and here's some of the things that we feel when we're stuck in our high zone. We're angry, we panic, we have phobias, we're irritable, we're hyperactive. For children, sometimes there's frequent crying, even for adults. There are nightmares, night terrors. For little children, there's the clinging on because we're out of our comfort zone, our okay zone. Now, if you're bumped lower than your comfort zone, then some other things happen to us. Things like daydreaming, inability to make friends for children. It could be inattention, forgetfulness. It could be loneliness. It could be sadness. It could be the times where you don't want to feel like getting out of the bed. Now, here's what I want you to write down. Write this down. It's okay to be bumped out of your comfort zone. It's okay to be bumped high out of your comfort zone. It's okay to be bumped lower than your comfort zone. What we don't want is we don't want to get stuck there. Did you write that down? Write it down again. Write it down twice. The key is not to get stuck outside of my comfort zone. And so in the CRM training, there are five skills. We're going to share with you today 3 skills that you can use to help get back into your comfort zone, to keep you from turning around in the car and having Walter have a bad birthday. Okay? So the first skill I want to teach you, and it's the number 1 skill, it's called tracking. Tracking is the idea of learning to read your nervous system. Everybody who's born has a nervous system. Everybody who's born. And so in our nervous system, there are things that happen automatically in our nervous system. There's some things that we do to prepare for action. We call it sympathetic nervous system. Then there's some things that we do to prepare for rest. We call that parasympathetic nervous system. And so tracking is understanding how to read your nervous system. And this is a T in sign language. And we look at tracking as the center of what we do in CRM training. Tracking is reading your nervous system. It's paying attention to the rhythms of your body as it prepares for action or as it prepares for rest. When we're in our high zone, we may experience distress. And our heart rate goes up. It beats faster. Our breathing beats faster. We become faster and shallower. And if that, you will notice then that your attention is different. And so as we learn about tracking what's going on in your body, tracking what happens in your nervous system, the sympathetic part of our nervous system is it prepares us for action. This controls organs in the time of stress. So when I'm stressed, things happen. For example, my breathing rate goes up. When I'm stressed, my heart rate goes up. When we're stressed, our eyes dilate. When we're stressed, our blood pressure goes up to the sky. Okay? We start sweating. We're stress hormones. Now also, however, when we're stressed, we lose the appetite. We don't want to eat like we normally would do. And so our mouth gets dry. However, that's the sympathetic. The parasympathetic is like the brake. The brake. You're putting on the brake. It comes to a rest. The parasympathetic, the opposite happens. My breathing rate slows down. My heart rate slows down. My pupils contract. My blood pressure goes down. I'm not sweating. As a matter of fact, when I'm in the parasympathetic, when I'm putting on the brake, I have an appetite now. Okay? And so tracking is then the ability to be able to observe or to understand what's going on in your body. And so you ask kind of three questions. You ask, is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? And you want to dwell on those things that are pleasant and neutral. Now, the second skill that we want to teach you through the CRM training is a skill called resourcing. Resourcing is a resource is a person, place, or thing. It's something that brings you joy, that brings you happiness. It's something that brings you down to or back into your resilient zone, brings you back to your okay zone. And so I shared with you this picture because this is actually a resource for me. This is the same picture I have on my cell phone in my homepage because this picture brings me happiness. And so whenever I'm kind of stressed out or bumped above my resilient zone, bumped out of my resilient zone, I find a resource. Now, let me share with you. A resource can be, again, a person, place, or a thing. It could be the memory of a person. It could be the memory of a loved one. It could be the memory of a favorite place. It could be the memory of something that you did when you were small or you're doing now. It could be a quiet place. It could be a loud place. It just depends on you. And what we understand about resources is that everybody may have different resources. For some kids, a resource may be their toy. This is Scooby-Doo. And of course, it's one of my kids' toys, but it's a resource. Charlie Brown, Linus, had a blanket, and his blanket was his resource. So a resource then, as we understand this, write this down. A resource is something that brings you pleasure, that brings you back, that calms you down. It could be a person, it could be a place, or it could be a thing. And so when you think about a resource, think about that for a moment. When I look at my son's pictures, what does it do to my breathing? What does it do to my mind? What does it do to bring me peace, bring me calmness? That's what a resource will do. It's something that you do. I call a resource my go-to. Whenever I'm being pushed out of my resilient zone, we call that triggering. Whenever I'm being triggered out of my resilient zone, something has happened, something stressful, something maybe out of my control. It could be a minor thing. It could be a major thing. It just depends on where I am in my resilient zone. And when I find myself being pushed out of my resilient zone or pushed low out of my resilient zone, I find a resource. I can even think about it in my mind. If it's a place I can go to, I'll go to it. But I will find a resource, and that resource will help me to get back into my resilient zone. Because what we understand about being in your resilient zone is that when you're at your resilient zone, you're at your best self. You can make better decisions for you and better decisions for your family. And so as we learn these skills, we want to recognize that these skills are skills to help us, to self-help us, to help us to do a better job as a parent, do a better job as a mate, to do a better job as an individual. Okay? So the first skill that we shared with you is called tracking. It helps you to recognize what's going on in your body. The second skill is called resourcing. Resources is a person, place, or a thing. It's something that will uplift you and make you feel happy. It's to make you feel calmer, and it gives you a sense of peace. Resource. And then the third skill I want to share with you today is called the skill of grounding. Grounding. Grounding means you're bringing attention to your body or part of your body with something providing support in the present moment. When a person is grounded, they're grounded for that present moment. When you're grounded, that means you're not worried about past, nor are you worried about the future. When you ground, you can ground using your hands, your body parts. You can use your feet. Sometimes people can ground by laying on the ground. You can ground by sitting in your chair. Try that with me for a moment. Just sit back in your chair. Wherever you are, just sit back in your chair. And you can feel the sense of everything is okay because I'm kind of resting in the chair. That's a grounding technique. You can ground by standing up. You can ground by lying on the couch, lying on the ground. You can ground by walking outside, walking in the sand. You can ground by putting your hand on different surfaces, but it helps you to be grounded. When my wife one day was surprised by a friend, and she was running and hollering, and she went and she put her back against the wall. That was grounding. That was to get herself back into her resilient zone. And that's what grounding does. Grounding brings attention to the present moment. Key word is that when you ground, you aren't worried about the past, nor are you worried about the future. You are preparing yourself for this right now moment. So the three skills that we've introduced to you today very briefly are the skills of tracking. That's where you want to recognize what's going on in your nervous system. We've talked about resources. A resource is a person, place, or a thing, something that you could hold on to that helps to bring you back to a place of calm, brings you back into that resilient zone. And then we've also talked about grounding. Grounding is where you can put your hands on something, your feet on something. You can sit on it. You can put your back against the wall, and that helps you to get back into this resilient zone. Then the last thing I want to just introduce you to is we call it help now skills or reset skills. These are skills that you could call on, that you could use if you find your son, your daughter, or your mate, or even if you find yourself being bumped out of your comfort zone, being bumped out of your resilient zone. These skills are some simple skills. We call them reset skills because reset now. Now, the sign for help in sign language is this. Kind of copy me. Take your right hand and ball your fist. Take your left hand and put it under that right hand and then just lift it up. That's the sign for help. That's the sign for help in sign language. So the help and the sign for now is putting your hands straight down, bending your fingers. Now, help now, help now, help now. So some help now skills. These are skills that you could use when you find yourself being bumped out of your resilient zone, being bumped out of your comfort zone, or if you notice your children, because I've been watching them, I'm tracking them, and I notice they're irritable, I know they're angry, I know they're not having a good day. If they're out of their resilient zones, I could practice or use some of these skills, and they will in turn get back into their resilient zone. I'll just share a few of them with you today. One of the skills that we use for a help now skill is drinking water. Okay? When you drink water, notice how it slows you down. It calms you down. So drinking liquids, drinking something will help you in a help now skill. If I'm being bumped out of my comfort zone, being able to do something as simple as drinking water. Now, another skill that's good for us is counting backwards from 20. Counting backwards from 20. When you count backwards from 20, it helps to shift your thinking in your brain. It helps to reset your nervous system so that now you can get back to handling whatever it is you're stressed about. I did this once in a Bible study. I had some ladies and we were teaching a Bible study. We were talking about anger. And the Bible says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And so I was talking to them about how have you ever been angry? And they go, yeah, I always get mad and people get under my skin. And I said, well, let's try this event. And I said, let's count backwards from 20 and let's see what happens. And so we did the event. And then afterwards, after counting backwards from 20, I said, what did you feel? What did you notice? And some of the people said, well, I noticed my blood pressure wasn't boiling. I noticed I was calmer. I noticed I stopped breathing heavy. I started breathing deeper and things like that. And then one lady said, well, I noticed this one thing. She was a mean woman too. She says, I noticed when I got to 17, I'd forgotten all about it. That's a great skill to try, okay? Counting backwards from 20. Another good one is listening to the sounds around you. Paying attention to the sounds around you. Another help now skill is naming, for example, the 6 colors in your room. Look around for a second. See those colors in your room. It helps to reset your nervous system. Another thing that I've learned that works really well for me is pushing against the wall, pushing against an object, pushing hard against the wall. Do that sometimes when your children are frustrated and they're bouncing around and they're out of their comfort zone. Try pushing against the wall. Try pushing against something. Another good one that works for me is noticing the temperature in the room, feeling the different textures of things or objects, like things that are in your house, things that are hot, cold, soft, rough, using feeling things like that. And then another one that works really well for me is a walk outside. Just go for a walk. You got children and they're bumped out of their resilient zone. Take them for a walk. Just take them for a walk. I call it going out and just kicking a rock. You don't have to say anything. Just kick a rock. Just walk out and just kick a rock, and you'll note how all of a sudden people can get calm. I heard the poem that said, a wise old oak lived in a tree. A wise old owl lived in a tree. I got it messed up. I'll have to do it again. I'm getting bumped out of my comfort zone. Let's see. A wise old bird lived in an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we be like that wise old bird? Okay, so take your time and walk outside and do some listening skills. Okay, so what I've shared with you today are the introduction to the CRM model, community resistance model. And introducing that resistance model, we've talked to you about resistance, being able to bounce back, being able to handle the situations that you are facing every day. And as we talked about this CRM model, we also talked about the resistance, that you have a comfort zone. We call it the okay zone. Everybody has a resilience okay zone. There, when I'm in my zone, I'm okay. When sometimes I'm up now and sometimes I'm down. Sometimes in that zone there are ebbs and flows, But what we also learn is that people can, and life can stress you out. Life can trigger you. So with all of the changes, going to the store and not finding toilet paper can be a trigger. Going to the store and having to stand in line can be a trigger. Having to wear a mask can be a trigger. So what we do is, when we're triggered, it's okay to be triggered. It's okay to be out of your comfort zone for a moment, but it's not okay to do what? To be stuck there. You don't want to be stuck there. Remember, I had you write that down? Write it down again. I don't want to get stuck outside of my comfort zone. So we learn these skills that will help us to get back into our comfort zone. We learn these skills so that it'll help us to help us to regulate our nervous system, so that we can get back into a position where we're able to handle whatever the situations are we're facing. And those skills were tracking. That's where you're reading your nervous system. You're reading what's going on in your body. Tracking. We also talked about resources, which could be a person, place, or a thing. And then we also talked about grounding, putting your feet on the ground, putting your hands on an object that will help you to get back into your comfort zone. And then lastly, we shared with you just a few of the help now skills. There are 10 of them. I shared with you a few: drinking water, counting backwards by 20, going out for a walk. I call it kicking a rock. Listening to the sounds around you, naming the 6 colors in your room, maybe pushing against the wall. Those are just a few of the things that we could do that will help us to get back into our resilient zone. So I want to remind you then that you can go to our website. And the website is nhcbouncesback.com. The Resilience Task Force website is nhcbouncesback.com. And there you can get resources, you can get infographics, and you can even get a copy of the Help Now skills. And also learn information about the 3 basics skills that we shared with you today. You can also, when you go to that website, note that there's a place where you can pull up the iChill app. You can go to www.ichillapp, and then you can pull up the information about all of the things that we've talked to you as it relates to community resilience model. Okay. I really want to thank you for spending the time with us this afternoon. And I want to encourage you to continue to do what you're doing. Parents, you are doing a great job. I know that it's difficult. I know that it's challenging at times, but we want to remind you that these are some skills that will help you, to get back into your comfort zone so that you will be at your best self, especially during the times that we are facing right now. Can I remind you to please be safe? Remember to wear a mask. Remember to stay 6 feet apart from the people around you. Don't gather in groups larger than 10. And then, of course, remember to always wash your hands. Singing happy birthday, soap and water, wash your hands. Again, thank you for spending time with us. And again, you can go to the NHCBouncesBack.com, the Resilience Task Force website, to get information, to get resources, and to get infographics, and even some information about the basic suite that we've shared with you today and the Help Now skills. May you have a great day, and thank you for spending time with us. Bye-bye.